stars of the show. Welcome to episode 35 of the Relaxed Dog Podcast, sponsored by therelaxeddog.com. Thank you very much for finding this podcast and listening. I am your host, Robert Ober, and I hope that you and your dog are well. This week, my guest is Kathi Kulesza, and we'll be talking all about her Yorkie Sissy. But first, in some doggy news, Spot has been spotted. Some of you may remember, although it's been a while, Spot, the Boston Dynamics robotic dog, has recently been in the media again because Boston Dynamics has been bought, or 80% of it has been bought by Hyundai in a deal worth around $921 million. So I wonder if they're going to rebrand Spot at some stage. Anyway, a clip doing the rounds on TikTok is of Dexter, the boxer dog, as he guides his blind friend Ginger down the stairs. So it's a nice clip to watch if you can get a hold of that. Also, important news if you are in the US and you fly with your dog, or more specifically, fly with your service dog. Last week, the US Department of Transportation has put out some new rules. Apparently, quite a few people were just using their dog and saying, I need that dog for my emotional support, and were able to then fly with the dog in the cabin, and now they've reclassified some of that stuff. So find your official Department of Transportation website and they'll have all the new rules out there. And now, this week's interview. Welcome to the Relaxed Dog Podcast. How are you, Kathi?
I am doing great. How are you doing, Robert?
I'm going fantastically well. Thank you very much for taking a little bit of time to join me today.
Oh, no, it's so exciting. What's better to talk about than your dog?
Yeah. And who are we going to talk about today?
So we're going to talk about Sissy, my 5-year-old Yorkie, and in theory, part Bichon, 10-pound crazy dog.
Looking forward to it. As per usual, I'm going to ask to take us back in time to just before you met Sissy and lead us into the events on how and why you guys got together.
All right. So although having Sissy is a really happy event, I had a dog that had passed away, a little 3-pound teacup Yorkie that had been in my family for about 13 years. And someone at church knew my dog had died. And so about a month later, after Zoe had passed away, I get this call from this woman at church. She says, "Oh, this gal Pat at church has a dog and she's trying to find a new home for it. And do you want to meet the dog?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't know. I'm not sure I'm ready yet." And then I called this woman and she was in a big hurry to rehome the dog. She was on her way to go on a trip. And so I'm in my 50s and she was in her 70s. And I went to her house to meet the dog and wasn't sure if I was going to be approved. I wasn't sure how it was going to work. And, I kind of met her one time at church. So I go over there, I get to her home. Sissy attacks me because she's just this friendly, super licking dog. She was 1 year old at the time. And I meet her and she, was this amazing, cute little dog. And then she's like, "Well, what do you think?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I would love to have her." And she goes, "Okay, we'll take her now." I was like, "Okay." So she gave me this big bin of kibble and she gave me all her dog accoutrements and her clothes and, her bed and everything she had. And I drove off with a dog that day. So I had a dog. And so she was basically 1 year old or almost one. And she told me a few things about her when I met her. She said, she says, she loves to chew. She hardly ever barks. She's pee pad trained. She goes to the bathroom outside, and she's kennel trained. And I was like, okay, so whatever all this means. Because before I had this little 3-pound dog that basically you just picked it up and you took it everywhere. It really didn't matter. And the poo from that dog was very tiny, and easy to clean up. So I get this giant 10-pound dog, 3 times the size of the dog I had. I know she's not really a real dog, but she feels like a real dog to me. And I get home and I'm like, okay, I've got this dog. I've got the pee pads that she gave me. So I put the pee pads down. And, I really don't know what I'm doing, honestly, because the other dog I had was really not really like a real dog, 3 pounds. And so
real dog.
yeah, well, 3 pounds is just like, kind of like you just scoop it up and take it everywhere. And Sissy you can scoop her up. She's just a little bit heavier. She's like a 10-pound dumbbell. So for the first 4 days I have her, she only pees and poops in the house. And I take her, and I live across the street from a park, which I'd never really been to the park before. And so at 4 times a day, I'm taking her on walks. And at the time, I was a personal trainer in the gym, so I was getting up. I had to be there at 6. So I'd get up at like 4:30 in the morning. I'd walk her, come back home, and then she had a kennel, so here's the thing: the pee pad train and going outside and doggy door train, did not seem like it was true. She would not go in the kennel. So she had a kennel, but to get her in the kennel, I literally had to drag her by the collar out from underneath one of my chairs to get her in the kennel. Like, it was horrible. She barked at everything, and she really doesn't chew on that much, honestly. So everything she told me was the exact opposite.
The opposite.
I was like trained to avoid the kennel, so 4 times a day I would take her on these walks, morning, 4:30 in the morning, 2 times during the day, at night. And I swear I would get home, and next thing you know, I'm stepping in a puddle or there's some poo. 4 days straight. Finally, on like the 5th day, she pees in the grass at the park, and it's like a party. I'm like, oh my God, this is the most amazing. Because I was, and she was also keeping me up at night. Like, she wasn't sleeping through the night. She was like, kept seeming like she had to go outside. So it was like having a newborn child. I mean, I'm not a mom, but I think it's as close to that as possible. So I was in a little bit of overwhelm, thinking, good God, what have I done? Like, why did I do this? And so I took her to the vet. And the vet was amazing. He told me to stick her in the kennel at night and not have her in my bed, to train her. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. It was horrible. But I put her in a kennel one night, and he goes, you have to know if she really needs to go out or not. And you're not going to know that until and he actually thinks you should just put the dog in the kennel at night every night. But I put her in the kennel the first night that he told me to do it. And she did not like it, but, and it was a rough night of sleep, but she did end up having an accident in the kennel. So then I knew, okay, she can't necessarily get through the entire night, because, dogs really aren't going to go in their kennel unless they absolutely have to. So I did that for a couple weeks, and then found out that if she wakes me up once a night, that can be reasonable. And so after that, she will only wake me up at the most once a night. So we got past that, because, I'm not young, so I need my beauty sleep. And then eventually she peed and pooped outside, and she started using the doggy door. But I'll tell you what, those first few weeks, I was like, what have I'm out of my mind, and I can't take her back, because the woman was so happy not to have her, and I think she really did care about her, but the dog was a little bit, at 1 year old, she was a little bit high strung for her, a woman in her 70s. So she was just like, it's just too much. Since then, we've been through quite a bit of, next thing I did was, because I was a personal trainer at the time. So somebody said, you should get dog training. And I'm like, okay. So I went to Petco, where the pets go here in the US. And I went to Petco where the pets go. And there was a special, and it was 19 weeks of training for the dog, which actually I found out on the first session, it's actually for me, because the dog is not the problem. It's the human. Yeah.
It's
So,
usually, correct.
yeah. So we went to 19 weeks of dog training every week religiously. And I learned a lot about myself. And she can sit and she can, you can say down. And I did get her to stay. I mean, I kind of gave up on all that stuff because honestly, she's 10 pounds. It's not like having to train a 70-pound dog where you really need them to stay and to heal. 10 pounds, you just pick them up if they're being a jerk. But I did follow the training regularly for that 19 weeks, and I could get her to stay like 30 feet away. I could get her to wait for her food and sit and wait for it and not take it out of my hands. And I did a really good job. I was very proud of myself during all that time, but I have to be honest, I'm not that good at following all that training now, but she still does sit and she still will go down for a treat. So I was very proud of myself and her for that, but more really for me because, let's be honest, that dog training is not really about the dog. It's about us, and that consistency. But I do have to say that she's 5 now. So we've been together for 4 years, and, I don't know, after getting past that first 4 weeks of thinking I was crazy for doing it, like, I don't know what she is my best friend. I mean, she's with me, all the time, and she's a cuddler, and I'm single, so she spoons with me. I always have her, like, she's always next to me when we sleep, and she's got tons of energy, and she's the most loving, most adorable dog. And she's also crazy. One of the crazy things she did when I first got her is because she's definitely into her senses. Like, so when I had the Yorkie that I had, that was the teacup Yorkie, she was a little, she was 13 when she passed away. She just kind of, hung out with me and didn't really do what I thought normal dogs would do. But Sissy definitely is a normal dog. She has a great sense of smell, great sense of sight, great hearing. She does bark all the time, by the way, because she said she hardly ever barks. She barks all the time, but she's very in tune to everything that's going on around her. Like, I do think she sleeps with one eye open. And she's also like a little bit of a burrower. Like, she likes to kind of hide under things. And so I have these chairs in my living room, and I didn't realize she was doing this, but you know how underneath the chairs, they have the lining inside the chair, like underneath. So she had pulled, dug at the lining. And one day I'm looking for her because she used to hide under the chair. And I'm looking and I'm like, what's going on? She's inside the lining. She had dug a hole, climbed up inside underneath the chair, and was in there.
Made a nice little hidey hole.
Yeah, like a little cave. I'm like, so I taped it, and eventually I just had to take that lining off. Thankfully, she didn't find the lining on the other chair, but she's done some crazy stuff like that. But I think because she's small, I don't know, maybe it's just a dog thing, but she does like to be under me. It's not like, so that's a chair I sit in. So she likes to be under me. When we go to the dog park, she likes to be standing behind me. So we kind of know each other's habits. She can read my mind. So, I have a 2-story house, and she knows where I'm going, like, before I know. Like, when I'm heading up the stairs, she can go to either my office or my bedroom. She knows where I'm going. It's amazing. Like, I don't know how a dog could read your mind, but she reads my mind. And it makes me realize how smart dogs are, because they pick up on, like, your body language, your tone of voice.
Very much,
and I have to be, it's right. It's amazing. Like, I have to be careful how I say things to her, because sometimes when I say things, she thinks I'm talking about going to the PARK or for a WALK. I'm afraid to say the words because I think she does know what those words mean, or it's how I say it. I'm not sure. But yeah, she's a very incredible, entertaining, crazy dog. And I remember, like, that first few months that I had her, it was interesting. And I kind of relate it. My sister has a 4-year-old. And she's 5. So I'm kind of amazed at some of the similarities to having a baby as having a puppy, leave it, put it down, don't eat that, right? Those kind of things we say to kids and dogs. And then just her awe of things. Like, I remember when we go over to the park, the first time she saw a motorcycle, she's like looking at this, and she's like doing this creepy crawly thing up, like one paw at a time. And she's like leaning into it and looking at it. And then she would like back up, and then she'd do a little, like, she'd go a couple feet over to the right, and she'd crawl up to it and look at it. And then she'd back up and she was really in awe about this motorcycle. And I'm like, this is the strangest thing, but she knew it was something she had never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just this crazy, this kind of interesting thing to just see the world through her eyes. And then I remember the first time she saw a fire truck, it was the same thing. It was this bright yellow fire truck. And she did the same thing. She kind of like stopped and she's looking around, and then she slowly creeps up and then would stop and back up. And she did that for like the first year I had her. Now she's more adapted to everything, but it just seeing like these firsts through her eyes is just like seeing the first through children's eyes, is very kind of I don't know, it just kind of makes you, I always say that having a dog makes you kind of slow down a little bit because you have to think about them, right?
Yeah, it's a nice way of looking at it. And yes, you're talking about that's what in what I believe like is in true socialization when they say, getting a puppy or a young dog. To me, it's not all just about, okay, I get my dog to be all right around other dogs. It's really introducing your puppy or young dog to the world about all the things that they may encounter and getting them comfortable with that. And that's exactly sort of what you've just sort of saying about, this is the first time with a motorcycle or a large truck, and there's all different sights and smells. Mm-hmm. Then they go, oh, that's no threat. That's all right. I'm cool with that.
Yeah. If I could just get her to go outside the doggy door when it's raining, this would be But, I live in the desert, so we don't get a lot of rain in Vegas. So going outside and peeing in the rain is not something she likes. Actually, what's funny is she's all down for a walk in the rain, as long as I'm getting soaking wet, but she will not go out. And I originally, and she's not as bad about this as she used to be, but I used to attribute it not so much to the rain, but I think now it could be the rain too, but the color of the brick being a different color. She used to freak out going out onto my side patio where she does all her business is brick. Mm-hmm. And the brick turns color in the rain. So to me, like she could look out there and I'm sure she could smell the rain and know it's humid too. But she was afraid to step on the bricks. It was the strangest thing. And I think it was a color difference thing. She's not now if it's not too wet out there, she'll do it, but it's just amazing how in tune she is to everything around her. Mm-hmm. And, for me, I think sometimes we are just so much in autopilot as human beings because everything just is, it's all old to us, right? I mean, we're just so used to it. We're not paying attention. And she's still, even though she's a little bit more adapted to her surroundings, she's still very in tune to what's going on. She's always paying attention, and you can see her like it's funny. I have a roommate, and she notices this, like if I leave a treat out on the counter, the dog knows the treat's there. She can smell it. She's like, she's in here in the kitchen. She wants a treat on the counter. I'm like, oh shoot, I forgot I left it there, and then I'm like, just give it to her. She's just so, it's amazing how like present she is all the time when she's not sleeping. She's always very present, right? To sounds, to smells, to the colors of things, to what's going on around her. And it kind of makes me more present in a way. And then the slowing down is kind of like, I am a little bit, because she's not a perfect dog, let's be honest. I mean, small dogs, I think, are guilty of this. And maybe just because we don't work as hard at it, because their piddle is not as big of if I had a pit bull, with a big bladder like a pit bull, I would definitely want to make sure that pit bull peed outside. Her, it's not nice when she does it on my floors, but I don't have a lot of carpet. So, I'm probably not as good at it as I could be, but she'll punish me for not spending time with her because I spend a lot of time online. So I know if I don't go during the day, if I'm working a lot during the day in front of my computer, if I don't make sure I go downstairs and spend time with her, sometimes she has little accidents. But she, I always have to remember to take time to spend with her, because if I don't, I'm too much in a hurry or too much in my own kind of world, and I don't give her the time she needs, then I sometimes do get punished for that. And I don't know, I still today, because of that first couple of weeks I had her, I still make sure I watch her pee when she goes outside. I don't know why. It's like a bad habit, but I make sure I watch. So I feel like when I leave the house, I make sure she's good to go. And it makes me kind of plan a little bit further ahead on anything I'm going to be doing. So it definitely makes me slow down. And, and kind of pay attention to what's going on. She'll hear something and I'm like, what is it? Do I need to pay attention? So I don't know. It's kind of a cool thing having a dog, because it makes you pay a little bit more attention, be a little bit more present than we normally are, I think, in life.
Absolutely. They're a great tool to make you realize living in the now and your surroundings.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask, you mentioned that she's now sleeping in bed with you.
Yeah.
How was that transition from early on, because she was in the crate early?
Yeah. So I think she slept in the bed with Pat when I got her. And then I had her in the bed, but she was waking me up like 3-4 times a night. And that's when I told the vet, I'm like, look, I'm too old for this. I need my good night's sleep. So he told me to put her in the kennel. He would have told me, I never told him I'd stop putting her in the kennel, but he's like, just have her sleep in the kennel. And so I did it the first night. She peed in the kennel. I felt bad. I kept her in the kennel for about 2 weeks, but I would let her out once. And then once she only woke me up once a night, then I put her back in the bed, which I know is people are there's definitely a segment of people, dog people, that say, don't let your dog sleep with you. But then there's the rest of us who think it's the best thing ever to have a little, warm little body next to you in the bed. And I have to say, I traveled a lot for my business pre-COVID, and I was home. There was months where my dog sitter slept in the house more than I did because I was traveling, and there was nothing better than getting home and having that dog be so excited to see me. I could hear her as I'm rolling my luggage in from the car in the garage. I could hear her. She knew it was me, and just the welcome I get, and just that first night of her cuddling next to me. I mean, I don't know. It's she has her side of the king size bed. I have mine, but by middle of the night, she's like just leaning against me. And it's just, I don't know. It just, for some reason, it just calms me down. It helps me sleep. And I think it helps her sleep. And, I wouldn't have it any other way, but I know there's a lot of people, and there's another lane of dog people that say, keep your dogs off the bed. I am not in that lane. So
Can relate to that.
Yeah.
Similar. It started the hall, and then into the bedroom, and then eventually into the bed. So I lost those sort of, I won't say they were battles, but we sort of had a line, and the line got blurred, and ours has been in the bed for years. So, but it's a nice feeling.
Yeah, it is. And even the kennel, like when I first had her, I would kennel her when I left the house. So I would go to work, I'd stick her in the kennel. I finally did, it probably took about 6 to 9 months where she stopped hiding from me, like to get in the kennel. And that day, I remember the first time she started just going in the kennel willingly. And I did change, because I had a crate that the woman had given me that was one of those plastic ones that wasn't very open. And so when I was going to the dog training, the dog trainer recommended me getting a metal kennel that's more open, so she could see, so I got her a slightly bigger one. It's not big, but for her size, it's perfect. I got 2 of them. I have one in the bedroom, one downstairs, and I still have them. And even when I first had the dog sitter, I'd had the dog sitter leaving her in the kennel. But then when I was traveling, I was worried about her being in the kennel too long, because, if you have a long day, I mean, she could make it 8 or 9 hours, but it's like, there's that 9th hour and you're just like, and she's in this darn kennel. So I finally started practicing leaving the house and leaving her out of the kennel, got where I was comfortable. And I told the dog sitter, look, you don't have to kennel her anymore, and I just put some extra pee pads out. Normally she's badly behaved when I'm home, not when I'm not home. It's the weirdest thing. Her accidents are always when I'm here. So, but she still goes in her kennel, like just to sleep. She'll go in there. It's interesting because she loves treats, and some of the treats that I give her, she'll eat right away, but there's other ones that she hides them around the house. Mm-hmm. So she, like my office door, and I don't keep the doors with the carpeting open just because I don't want to have to clean up anything on the carpet. I just don't trust her, but I keep my office door closed when I'm not in it. And sometimes at night she's outside my office door, and she's like kind of sitting there and I'm like, what's going on? I have to open the door. There's something hidden in here that she needs to go find. So, and she definitely hides treats in her kennels. So, because she is used to me giving her treats to go in the kennels, and even today, like when I'm leaving the house, which is not very often right now, and I'm not taking her with me, she knows she can feel my body language. I'm getting ready to leave. She'll sit in the kennel and wait for her kennel treats, even though I don't close the door. But she'll go in, she knows the routine, right? Because the dogs, that's how they live. They live on our routine. So she goes in, it's especially like if because one of my things I used to do when I first got her is I'd make a shake for breakfast every morning. So if the blender is on, it doesn't matter what time of day, she's in the kennel. So she affiliates that blender with me leaving the house. So whenever the blender's on, she is in the kennel waiting for me to give her treats. And I'm like, I'm not leaving right now. I'm not really going anywhere. It's kind of funny, but dogs kind of pick up on those routines, and it's amazing because people say that dogs they live in the present moment, but they definitely know routines. So they do know things from the past because they have those routines that they follow with you. So it's really amazing. Because I'll tell you something else. When I first got her, I used to tell people I can't train her. I'm so bad at training her. And I was inspired by a previous roommate I had a cat. And I'm allergic to cats, but I was like, well, we'll try it. And so the cat did not like the dog, but the cat was training the dog. By like the dog would mess with the cat, and the cat would just do a little, and the dog would come back down the stairs. I'm like, the cat is training the dog. If the cat can train the dog, I should be able to train the dog. And that was my inspiration. I'm like, if a cat can train my dog, I should be able to train my dog. So then that's when I kind of turned the corner. I thought, if I can do this, I can figure this out. And it's really about us, right? Because they can follow the routines, it's almost makes you realize, okay, those routines are important, right? So some of the routines I had were healthy routines that I had, and she responded to them. So then I'm like, okay, sometimes I'm like, I have to get back to those healthy routines because it actually helps her too, because she expects certain things to happen after I do one thing. She expects some other things to follow. It's funny when she sees me put my socks on, she thinks we're going for a WALK. I can't say the word. We're going to the PARK.
That's understandable.
It's just something like it's because I wear flip-flops or open-toed shoes, but if I put my socks on, for sure she thinks we're going out over to the park. Got to be careful.
Does she have favorite walks, and do you go like with out on hiking trails and stuff like that with her?
So I'm not a big hiker, but I'll tell you, the park across the street from me, it's a pretty big park. And when I first got her, I have a new friend, and I haven't made a lot of new friends in older in life, right? And so when I first had her, I was over the park all the time, and I was over there one day, and this is 3.5 years ago, and there was this woman with this pit bull that seemed almost scary. Like the pit bull was rah, 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 and on a leash, and Sissy's like pulling, barking, and her and I talked for a few minutes, and then we didn't bring them close because it was really frightening, right? Mm-hmm. The next time I see her, the dogs are a little bit calmer. I'm like, oh, do you want to try to, introduce them? So we introduced them, and they were fine. And so that dog's name is Nala. She's a mostly pit bull. I think she's probably like 13 or 14 years old now. It's Sissy's best friend. So nice. We then finally traded numbers, and Anne and I would just meet at the park, and we'd walk around the park with Nala and Sissy. And then Anne has 4 dogs. But we would always go on walks with Nala. Well, Nala's a little bit older, so then she'd bring a different dog over, and Sissy likes the other ones, but she really does love Nala is her BFF. And it's amazing because Sissy has these giant ears that everybody loves. And Nala actually, for a pit bull, has pretty big ears for a pit bull. And they were the mean girls at the park because, they're on leashes. And anytime you'd see anybody, they're both like barking together at the other dogs. And we're like, oh my, it's so embarrassing because they're the mean girls. Well, that park now has a dog park. Mm-hmm. So this last year, right, about a year ago, they installed 3 giant sections on a football field lot, that grass area, 3 sections, a big dog section, a little dog section, and a anything goes section in the middle. So since then, now Anne is able to always bring 2 dogs over. So we just go over to the dog park. But I'll tell you what, she's kind of funny. Her favorite part about the walk is getting there. Once we get there, she will not leave my side. Unless we're in the small dog park and there's not a lot of dogs over there. She does understand when we go in the middle area, because the middle area is a mix of big and littles. She does understand. I think she understands her size, and she'll stay close to me. But her favorite part is pulling me all the way over there and then pulling me all the way home. But she does hang out with her. She has 4 best friends. They're all pit bulls, and she hangs out with them. And now Nala is old enough that she's able to go into the dog park without being, she's an amazing dog, but she scares people because she's a pit bull. Well, now she's calmed down. So we go hang out with Nala and Chunky, who's also kind of like a lab pit bull mix. We hang out over there, and then they've got some cousins, Carmen and a new little dog, Lola, and their little chihuahuas. And then there's some other cousins that are kind of medium-sized dogs it's funny because she's in the pack, they don't pick on her, but these dogs will gang up with each other and pick on other dogs, but they never pick on Sissy. So yeah, so we have a good time. She loves it over there, but she loves it as long as she's next to me. So
how does she go with the chihuahuas?
Oh, you know what? They're good. They're all the same size. So Carmen, like as soon as she sees Carmen and Carmen sees her, they greet each other and they kind of run around a little bit. Carmen is amazing because she's can I say a bad word? Not a terrible word. She's a badass. You're going to have to bleep that out. But she's like, this dog. Right. Okay, yeah, she's amazing. Like this Carmen does not take any crap from any dogs. So like Carmen will run with the big dogs. And then if they give her a hard time, she just barks at them and they back up. And then there's even another Yorkie over there that's 6 pounds, Mocha. And this Yorkie walks around, smells. In the big dog park lately, because the middle dog park was getting some work on it, there's this agreement that if dogs are too old or not too timid, but they're bigger, people will be okay with them going in the little dog park because it's kind of like little dogs and seniors in there, right? If Carmen and Mocha both, this other dog, it's just a guy I met over there. I have like all these community now. So the dogs have brought us together with the community, right? So Mocha, he'll walk around and he's kind of a grouchy little Yorkie. And if he doesn't like something, and I'm like, Sissy, pay attention to that. Like, that's how you should act, right? But she's, you know what? I did not give her the name Sissy, but this is the thing. Name your dog carefully because she is a sissy. So, and I did not name her that. It is her name, but she's lived into that name. So I just think you should be really careful how you name your dog because she has embraced, being a sissy, but she loves it over there. She's, that's what, and thankfully for Anne, because I literally only have to walk across the street to go to that dog park. And I still sometimes will go only because Anne texts me and says we're going to the dog park. So I thank God for Anne. And it's interesting because she's a new friend I met that I would have never met without having Sissy. And I have and because of that, we go to this dog park now and it's a community. And through COVID, once they finally, because they did close the dog park for a while during it, once we were able to go back over there, it's like the one thing we have in the community where we can go and have, we can spread out, it's open air, our dogs can run around and many times it's our only sanity, is to be able to just go out there and forget what's going on in the world and, let the dogs run around like, the jerks that they are, and bother each other and, and eat grass. They're like cows, they're eating the grass and, marking their territories. And it's just, if it wasn't for Sissy, I would be locked up in the house all the time. Right. Just like everybody, but it forces me to go out.
Especially now in the conditions that we around the world with COVID, but even pre-COVID, the dogs they're a key to so many human interactions and furthering human relationships. You're meeting so many people that you wouldn't normally meet, and even the fact that I'm here talking with you today is because of dogs. So I'm getting to meet lots and lots of great people and hear lots and lots of awesome stories about great dogs.
All over the world. And even though I know we're talking about Sissy today, but Zoe, the Yorkie that I had before Sissy, she was 13 years old. I got her when she was about 10. She was in my family. My brother had her for about a year, and it was a disaster because he had a family, and she was impossible to train because she's like this little teeny tiny Yorkie and just not trained. Like, he used to see her when I had her, and he would be like, I failed her. And he wouldn't even look at her because he couldn't train her. And then my sister had her for like 7 years, and then she had a baby. And she moved in, her and her husband were living in a house. They have a newborn. They've got 2 dogs. She's in like this caged area. And my brother-in-law tried to train her and he couldn't train her. So finally one day I said, hey, because Zoe, I felt bad for her. She's in this cage. I'm like, do you want me to take Zoe? And she's like, do you want her? And I'm like, let me ask my roommate. It was a different roommate. I've had 3 roommates. And my roommate saw a picture of her. She's like, oh my God, we have to have her. Because she's like this little 3-pound dog. So I took her, and my brother-in-law and brother could never look at her because they could never really train her. And I'm like, it's piddle. Like, the poop is like the size of your pinky. I mean, it's, like, even if she had an accident, it wasn't a big deal. But that dog, I could take and sit at Starbucks with her, when there's nice weather. And I would just sit her on a towel on the chair. And people would come by, and she was not very friendly. She didn't really like anybody, but she was no big, like, you could pick her up and she wouldn't give you a hard time. And they'd come over and they'd be like, can I hold your dog? And I'm like, sure. And that dog was therapy for so many strangers. Like, I would just let anybody pick her up, and people would be like, thank you so much for letting me hold her. You don't know what kind of day I've had, and you completely changed my day. So I would literally just go sit at Starbucks as a goodwill efforts thing with that dog, just to because people would see her and it would change the course of their day. And Sissy can change the course of your day, but she won't sit on a towel in a chair at Starbucks. So she will bark at everybody. She's a different kind of dog, but dogs definitely, and Sissy, I have to say, now I feel bad for the other dogs in the dog park because she literally is usually the cutest dog in the dog park. So, I mean, you saw her pictures. It's hard to deny that that she's probably not always the cutest dog. So we try not to flaunt that too much because, other people think their dogs are cute and we let them think that, but we know really who's the cutest dog. But dogs, I mean, animals can change. They socialize us. We meet new people. They get us out of the house. They give us joy. The right animals can, like, people, if they want to pet her, like, she's very easy. She'll let people pet her. And if they need to pet a dog, I let them pet her because sometimes I know it changes the course of their day. And if I can help somebody that way, let them pet a cute little dog, why not?
Excellent.
Yeah.
So what are her favorite games?
Well, she just likes to hide her treats around the house. She's not a big toy dog. So that was the interesting thing. So I was told that she loves to chew, right? And at the time I got her, she was just under a year. So the one thing she liked to chew the most was my fingers, like, honestly, but not really toys. So, for her, I mean, she does do the zoomy thing, around the house, like, and it's kind of funny because sometimes she does it even after we've been on a walk. So I don't know how, when I get rid of her energy, she's still like a little bit crazy, but she's not really a game player. She's not really she has 2 huge buckets of toys. Once in a while, she'll take a toy out. Really what I have to do is make sure I hide my slippers. Because if I have slippers with any pom-poms on them, she's guaranteed to mess with my slippers. And she loves to help make the bed. But really, she's not really making the bed. She's really keeping you from making the bed. She used to love to help me pack my clothes for trips, which was really not a help. She loves to do laundry, which is really not doing the laundry. Like, she loves to knock the laundry basket over. And it's funny, the other thing she does, which I think a lot of dogs probably do this, I don't think she's unique, but like, if I am in the shower and my laundry basket's full enough, I'll come out of the shower and she's pulled clothes out of the laundry and she's laying on my dirty clothes. I mean, or she'll pull my pajamas down off of something and be laying in my pajamas. But other than that, she lays around. She's really easygoing. She just kind of hangs out with me. Once in a while, she'll roll over and show me her belly. She loves to have her belly rubbed, and she will let anybody rub her belly. So, I mean, she's a belly rub, there's not a good word for it. You know what I'm thinking. I'm not going to say the word. She's an addict. To have her belly rubbed. She's an addict. She's awesome.
Nice. Do you have any other sort of unique, or if you could say weird, habits?
Well, I don't know if the grass eating, like that was kind of weird at first. So she does love grass. And it's funny because a lot of dogs do like to eat the grass over there. And some of the dog parents don't like it, but I researched it. And the only thing they said you have to be worried about with the grass eating is if the blades of grass get in their throat, because then they could kind of like throw it up. But she seems to love grass, which I think is unique. So then I'm thinking, okay, is there something I'm not putting in her diet? Right? Maybe this is me being a bad dog mom, right? But she loves grass. It's like, and it's funny because they'll all be hanging around and it literally looks like a bunch of cows grazing over there. She loves these, which they're not, I was going to try to find you one to show it to you, but they're these pea pod, they look like pea pod things, and they when they fall off the trees, they're yellow and dry. And she loves to grab those and eat those. Which I don't get it. I mean, it's like they're dry and hard, but there must be some smell that she loves in those. And then she loves to capture bugs when bugs are alive and carry them around in her mouth alive. So she doesn't like we have grasshoppers. And so she will pick them up in her mouth and then carry it around. And I'll be looking at her like when we're at the park and I'm like, what are you doing? And then all of a sudden this bug flies out of her mouth. And I'm like, that's just so disgusting. But, and then she's brought dead bugs into the house. Like she won't eat them, but she'll bring the bugs in and just leave them around the house. I'm just like, this is just not like, I don't need dead bugs in the house. But amazingly, she somehow has a sense to know not to mess with scorpions. Thank God.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Because we have a lot of scorpions here. Right. So for some, like she'll bark at scorpions, which I thank God for that she has this sense, and maybe she senses that they're not safe. So she'll bark at them and she'll look at them and she'll like growl at them. And so I've had a couple times where they've been in the house. They don't normally do because I have my house sprayed, but a couple times she'll be barking at something and I'll go and look, and they're very light color. So they blend in pretty well with the floor, and they're sometimes almost translucent. And 2 times she was barking at something, and sure enough, it was a scorpion that was still alive. I don't know how those suckers got in the house and lived across the threshold of bug spray around my house, but somehow they got in and were still alive. And she let me know that they were there. So I got rid of them. I will tell you something that she does love, and this is kind of this has happened because of COVID, that she's kind of gotten this habit of liking to get in the car. So when I first got her, she's never really liked the car. And the woman gave me 2 different car contraptions. One was this elevated seat for her to sit on that you would like attach her leash to, or her collar to, with a short leash. And it was like up high so she could see out the windows, which honestly, she was a freak. Like she would not sit on this thing. She was inconsolable. So then she had this other like soft case that she had for the car. So I tried that, and the first time I took her in a car ride in that, she threw up in it. So that was not really a good success. But after that, I just kind of went shorter trips, and this is when I was going to the dog training. So she said, just go on short trips, 5-10 minutes, bring her back. And so she knows it's okay. And then I remember the first time I put her in the car when it was raining and the raindrops were hitting the window. That was a nightmare. I mean, because she's the sound, right? And it's just that we have to be reminded that anything that's new and different, she is very highly sensitive to it when she was younger. Well, now she actually will willingly, it's almost, I feel bad some days because if I'm going out to get into the car now, because she goes with me more in the car because of COVID, my bad habit is going to Starbucks. So I love Starbucks. I love the Starbucks bacon egg bites. So that is our treat a couple times a week when I'm not working, I will go and I'll take her with me. And because I think she knows she gets to go in the car and there's some bacon in her future, she willingly will go with me. And so we go to Starbucks, we get the bacon egg bites. She semi-patiently waits for me to pick off. And I know bacon's bad for dogs. I don't give her a lot. Okay. So anybody that's out there judging me, it's not a ton of bacon. It's only twice a week. We do the bacon. I know it's bad for their stomachs. I don't feed her bacon every day. But I'll give her like some eggs and bacon off the bacon egg bites. And it's like our little treat to do twice a week. When it's good weather, I'll sit outside on the patio at Starbucks and, if there's no other dogs around, it works out. If it's bad weather, we, have our bacon egg bites in the car before we come home. But it's interesting because now sometimes I feel bad if I'm going somewhere and I can't take her because she will run into the garage. And I'm like, oh, not this time. You can't go. I feel so bad because in her cute little face is like, what do you mean I can't go with you? I'm like, oh, sorry, baby. Yeah.
It's going to be an interesting transition for a lot of households when the COVID restrictions in different places around the world start relaxing. And then especially a lot of the new younger dogs are going to be like, what?
Yeah.
Why is this changing?
Yeah. I was with NPR they were interviewing some people, some dog experts, and talking about that, what to do, especially because it was interesting when COVID first started. Cheryl, who you've talked to, does animal rescue, and they were really nervous about what to do they were expecting an influx of dogs. And so they were looking for fosters. And I was like, well, I would consider fostering, for the short term if you need it. So I did end up fostering, 2 dogs for a month. It was insane. It was a nightmare because all 3 dogs would bark and I'm trying to teach classes. I would just show pictures of the dogs at the beginning and be like, this is my crew. And I'm like Rodney Dangerfield and I get no respect around here. So if you hear barking, it's not me, it's them. But what ended up happening was there was a shortage of dogs, right? So they were afraid people would, and there was a little bit of that initially, people giving up their dogs because all the rumors about dogs could make you sick. They could have COVID. So there's that little initial 60-day period that they needed dogs fostered, but then all of a sudden there's no dogs because everybody's adopting, right? And I think they're still finding that dogs are getting adopted really quickly because it's your home, why not? But on NPR, they were talking about that. And I've thought about that too. If I go back on the road, she was acclimated to it. She knows the dog sitter, that it's the same dog sitter that stays in my house. Now I have a new roommate. So my roommate, I told her she has to be the dog sitter, but I'm here every single day. I rarely, I'll go out for a few hours. And I notice now when I'm gone for 3 or 4 hours, it's almost like I've been gone for 3 days, right? It's that like I was gone too long, and she used to be able to last 3 or 4 days with me gone, right? And what they said is to start preparing your dogs now for you leaving the house more. Yes. Leave the house for 10 minutes, leave the house for 20 minutes, leave the dog in another room, start acclimating them to you not being there. So when they're not, sad or suffering or having this separation, whatever that is, anxiety that dogs have. So they were talking about on NPR about how we've got to start preparing our dogs now, right? Especially the people with new dogs, new puppies, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how was, you mentioned with having the fosters, how was Sissy with them?
So here's what I did. I took Sissy with me to the rescue. There was 3 options. There was a crazy dog that was too much energy, jumping on everything. And Sissy did not like that dog. It was out of control. There was an older dog that was Cocker Spaniel, blind, but it kept walking around the rescue and it kept smelling her and bothering her and smelling her butt. And she wasn't really into that, but that dog probably would have been pretty easy to deal with. And then there was these 2 Corgi Chihuahua mixes, and they were walking around and could care less about her and she could care less about them. So I was like, well, what about those 2? And they had somebody else that wanted to foster them, but they were kind of dragging their feet. So they said, no, take them. So I took them. They were siblings and they were fine. She was okay with it. They all got along fine. One of them was food aggressive. So, which actually was a good thing because Sissy is not really good at eating. So it forced her to eat. And she started like growling back, which I'm like, it'd be good for her to have some, a little bit of reaction, right? Not just be a pushover, right? Because she is a submissive dog, but she was fine with them. One of them and her, they were like, they would go in and out of the dog door, they'd go outside and bark at everybody. The other one of the two siblings, and they said they were siblings. I think it might have been the mother of the other dog. It was a little bit smaller and not as strong and couldn't get in and out of the doggy door. So that one I'd have to kind of put in and out. But they all three slept in the bed with me. One of them would like to get under the covers with me. The one that was a little bit weaker would get under the covers next to me, would not leave my side. And she was fine. I think she was kind of like, what's going on right now? But she's pretty good, pretty good. I have a friend I dog sit for who has a Chihuahua, an old grumpy Chihuahua. And we've had some interesting times with that. One time I left them alone and she was a wreck. And I don't know what happened between them, if they had a little argument or something when I was gone. So I stopped leaving them alone, like together too long, but that dog's kind of older now. So now when I dog sit, they're fine together. And I know she looks at me and thinks, what are you doing? So there's another guy I dog sat for about 3 or 4 days. And it was a cute little dog, but she just kind of, she's pretty resilient. She just, she'll move out of the way. She's not jealous, of other dogs. She just kind of, she knows she's my girl. She knows that she's my number one dog. And if other dogs need my attention, she just kind of, she just puts up with it.
Nice.
She's easy going.
Question I asked all my guests is to complete the sentence. I can't believe my dog ate.
Yeah, her own poo.
Oh, her own.
So when I first got her, and that was another thing the vet helped me with. So I'm like, and I didn't realize vets could help you with all these problems, because he was like, oh, it's a new dog. What's going on? I'm like, well, she's not sleeping through the night, And I said, and she's eating her own poop. And I had learned from somebody, somehow at some point, somebody told me if dogs eat their own poop to give them pineapple because it makes the poops taste bad. I know. I don't know if it's an old wives' tale, but he gave me a medication that I guess makes the poop taste bad. And so we did the medication for a couple weeks and it didn't seem to work right away, but eventually she stopped eating her own poop. Thank God. She never ate anybody else's poop. And I don't know the reason why dogs eat their own poop. I mean, one person told me they thought it's because they're trying to hide their own scent. So it's like I've heard that.
The other thing I've heard is it's possible that because she might have been getting punished for doing that inside the house.
Oh, yeah.
And then they sort of get to learn that, I've got to get rid of it so I don't get punished.
Yeah. So she stopped. I mean, that was only like a month or so she did it, but it's like, seriously, she's eating her own poop. Like, yeah. So
you had any other medical issues?
Let me think about this. Medical issues. Well, I'm like anything that's strange, I'm freaking out, right? But none of it is strange, right? So she's never eaten anything that one time she did get a little sick and we decided that the two dogs ate probably because there's mushrooms under the grass. And so one night she threw up and I was talking to my friend Ann. I'm like, oh my God, Sissy threw up last night. She goes, oh, Nala did too. We knew they ate something in the grass. And we think they probably ate some mushrooms that made them sick. But she's not really had any major issues. Recently, she was doing some coughing. In Yorkies, there's this thing about how their tracheas have issues. So I bought her a new collar and a new harness because her harness, even though you'd think the harness would stop her from choking, she pulls so hard to get to the park. Even with the harness, she's like choking, like because she's choking herself. So I actually invested in, instead of like a $12 harness at Marshall's, like a cheap one, I actually went online and bought an anti-choke, like a harness that the dogs don't choke themselves. And ever since then, she stopped doing that. So, you just have to, I don't know. It's like, don't be cheap when it comes to harnesses, collars, training on your dog, right? Like the only other thing I did recently, have you heard of that Netflix show, Pet Fooled?
Very, very much again. It's been a very enjoyable conversation.
Yeah, thanks. I couldn't have thought of a better way to spend my time than talking about the dog because nobody else will let me talk to her for this long or talk about her for this long. So I really do appreciate that you have this place where we can go and talk about our dogs. And I promise I will start listening to the podcast because now I can listen to other people talk about their dogs. This is like the greatest thing ever that you've done for us dog owners. So thank you so much.
No, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. I look forward to catching up later.
Awesome.
Thank you very much for listening. I hope that you enjoyed the show. As we are heading into the Christmas period and you're giving gifts to your family and friends, why not give a gift of listening pleasure and recommend listening to this podcast? Until next week, stay safe and remember, your dog is family.